Good stuff. So good morning, welcome to the meeting of the Tayside Valuation Joint Board. The public part of the meeting will be recorded and placed on the internet, so bear that in mind when you're speaking, what you say. Members should keep microphones on mute throughout the meeting unless they are actually speaking at the time. And Laura, can you take us through the agenda, please?
Thank you. I will start by taking the roll call. Councillor Black.
Present.
Bailey Soares. Councillor Short.
I'm here. Excuse me.
Councillor Scullin.
Morning, I'm here.
Councillor Shears. I've received apologies from Bailey McPherson. I believe Councillor Duncan is here.
Yeah, that's right, here.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholl.
Present.
Councillor Fotheringham.
Present.
Councillor Shepherd.
Present.
Councillor Durnall.
Present.
Councillor McCall.
Present.
Councillor Welch.
Present.
Councillor Anderson.
Present.
Councillor Smith.
I'm substituting on behalf of Councillor Smith. It's Councillor Angus Forbes here.
Thank you. And Councillor Cuthbert.
Present.
Thank you. That completes the roll call. The next item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations to make?
Any declarations?
None.
Don't think so.
No, thank you. That takes us to item 3, minute of previous meeting. The minute of the previous meeting on the 25th of August 2025 is submitted for approval.
Is everyone happy with the minute? So is it agreed?
Agreed.
No. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you. That takes us to item 4, membership, Dundee City Council. The joint board are advised that Bailey Bill Dawson has been appointed as a member of Tayside Valuation Joint Board as a replacement for Bailey Christina Roberts, who has resigned, and this is for noting.
So let's note that. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to item 5, internal audit, and this is for noting.
I think, Darrell, you might want to introduce this report.
Yep, good morning. So this is the latest internal audit report, and it considered the risk management arrangements of the board. The overall conclusion is that the level of assurance is good and that the system meets the control objectives. One priority-free recommended action has been identified and accepted, and we have Steve McNaught of Henderson Logie in attendance today to assist with any queries that might arise in relation to this report.
Steve, do you want to say anything at this point before we have questions?
Yeah, I'll take the report as read. So I don't think I need to summarise it any further. So yeah, but happy to take any questions that the floor may have.
Members, over to you. Would you like to ask any questions in this report? Councillor McCall.
Thank you very much. I would like to understand what the difference is between good and satisfactory, please.
Yeah, so a good is, the definition of our grading is actually in the report. I refer you to page, just to find it.
Oh, okay, let me be clearer. Why is one aspect satisfactory and the rest just good? And if you can give me a précis of it, thank you.
Yeah, so the satisfactory grading has just come about because there isn't a recommendation has been raised against that particular objective. In this case, it's not the grade 3 recommendation doesn't indicate that there's a control failure. It's just that there's an opportunity to improve the current controls. So that's why it comes as a grade 3. If you take the rest of the objectives in balance as a whole, the report comes out as a good rather than on the side of satisfactory.
Councillor McCall, can I help here as well? Because I've been having a good look at this and trying to work out exactly what that's about. And it's to do with the way that we define our risk appetite. And if you go and look at the risk register, you'll see hundreds of potential risks and the way that the board deals with it, and the people who own the risks and the action they'll take. There's also then a thing about our risk appetite, part of the risk management strategy, which we apparently approve every year. And part of that suggests that our appetite for risk is moderate. And what the auditors are saying is that just saying moderate isn't enough. That if we simply say moderate, it doesn't give any practical understanding to people who are faced with something going wrong in the practical situation. And so what I believe we're being asked to do is take a look at the way that we define risk appetite and decide how willing we are to take risks and in which areas. So it might be financial controls, it might be tolerance of staff absence, a number of practical situations you can come up with where perhaps we could provide a better definition. Now at this point I should ask Steve from the internal auditors whether I've understood that. Can you tell me if I've explained that correctly?
Yeah, exactly that is what's laid out in the report. Yeah, you're quite correct. What we're saying is that
Steve, one of the risks that we face is not being able to hear our contributors.
So saying is that whilst there is a risk appetite, you're quite right, it just needs, the approach needs further refinement. A blanket approach to saying moderate to all risks probably doesn't actually reflect the true risk management approach that is adopted in the discussions that the management team and the joint board has. So identifying the risk appetite for the different classification of risks would be a better approach, is what we're saying.
So can I ask Darryl to tell us what his approach to dealing with this recommendation will be?
Yeah, I think the report itself sets out some guidelines that can be consulted before formulating a plan of action. But I think we had agreed at the convener meeting that it might be worth a discussion with the convener and vice convener beforehand, and I can certainly go ahead and then start drafting up some recommendations. We've set the time for this as the 15th of June, which is typically when we reconsider the risk register. So hopefully, if there are changes to the risk management strategy and thereafter the format of the risk register, we can bring them forward at that date.
That would be good. Are people quite happy with that approach?
Can I just come back in quickly?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Convener, for your explanation, and to Steve as well. I had read the report, Steve, actually, but I just wanted some clarification from you as the internal auditor, so I'm sorry if you felt that wasn't an appropriate question. In relation to determining what the risk appetite is, I think bringing that forward with the risk register in June is a little bit late in the day for members of this joint board to really consider it. And so I'm wondering if there's some consideration could be given to bringing that forward to our next meeting, so at least we can determine the risk appetite and then the risk register should follow on from that. I think bringing them both together really excludes this board from any meaningful contribution to the risk appetite.
No, I can see your logic. What do you think, Darryl? Is that practical?
Yeah, that's something we can take away and look into, and it makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, any other questions in this report? I'd just like to say that it's a very modest word, good, but actually what it means is it's the best. And, so we've done pretty well. And, we've talked about the thing that was satisfactory. We certainly haven't had any more stringent criticism of our practices. So I think we should be pleased and congratulate the staff on a good internal audit report. So I think, are we agreeing that report, or noting it, I should say? Noted. So item 6 then, Laura, is it?
Thank you. Yes, that takes us to item 6, financial reports. A, external auditors report on 2024-25 audit, and members are asked to agree the report.
So are there any questions on this report? And in fact, is Audit Scotland with us? Yes, Fiona. Aye. Fiona, would you like to introduce the report?
Yes, please. If you wouldn't mind, if I could say a few words, Chair, that would be great.
Please do.
So firstly, you will see on the cover letter that proposes that we have a clean audit opinion for the year, which means that the accounts are free from material misstatement based on our work. It also details any corrected and uncorrected misstatements within the accounts, but overall the board has any say on whether these are corrected or not. The misstatements that we identified fall below our reporting threshold, above our reporting threshold, but below our materiality because there's a net impact of £1,000 there. So we don't require these to be amended. In this case, it won't have any material impact on the accounts and for the reader. Within the letter at paragraph 7, you'll see there's a series of confirmations that I'm seeking from members. So this is just an opportunity for me to ask if there are any awarenesses of fraud, whether that be actual, suspected or alleged fraud, or if there are any events subsequent to the accounts that we should be made aware of. If there's anything, I'm happy to be informed at the moment, or if any of the members would like to get in touch with me, then please do subsequent to the meeting via email or Teams or anything like that, just so that we can check that there's no frauds that we're not aware of. The appendices to the letter includes the independent auditor's report that I'll be signing, and also the letter of representation. The letter of representation are the representations that I've requested from the Treasurer, and these get signed alongside the accounts. So this just gives me an additional level of assurance as to the contents of the accounts. Moving on to the annual report, I'll just say a couple of key things that are for highlighting. So within the key messages, you'll see, as I mentioned, that we've got an unmodified audit opinion, meaning that we've found no material misstatements within the annual report and accounts. This also confirms that myself and my team remain independent of the joint board, which is an important factor for external audit. One thing just to bring your attention to is at paragraph 15 in relation to the audit fee. You'll see that we've noted that we've charged an additional fee of £1,000, and this is based on not receiving the full package of working papers at the outset of the audit, and this just had a kind of knock-on impact onto us resourcing the audit and getting started at the audit. This also links into recommendation 1 within the appendix of the report as well. If I can also draw your attention to Exhibit 1, that just outlines our materiality and reporting thresholds for the year, and they remain the same that we reported within the annual audit plan. There was no amendment required once we received the accounts for the year. And within Exhibit 2, page 10, this is the significant findings from the audit that I'm required to highlight to you. First one being the valuation of the pension assets. And when we received the unaudited accounts, this included a pension asset of £13.93 million. Per the accounting standard IAS 19, this limits the pension asset to the lower of the surplus and what is described as an asset ceiling, so what is the maximum that can be included within accounts. The actuary hadn't applied the IFRIC 14 asset ceiling in the original calculation that was made for the pension asset and passed over to the value board, and therefore the accounts were revised, and this has now zeroed out the asset, so it's completely down to zero on that one. Also, in terms of IFRS 16, we've reviewed the arrangements that are in place for the implementation of this and concluded that they were appropriately applied by the board. Exhibit 3 just outlines the audit adjustment in relation to the pension asset that I have just spoken about, the 13.9 million. And then Exhibit 4, this outlines the risks that were identified at our planning stage and the work that we've done to address this, and there was nothing to conclude that there was any management override of control there, which is good news. As the board is considered to be a less complex body, there's a focus on only financial sustainability as part of the wider scope of the audit. Again, there was no issues coming out of that led to any sort of recommendation. And then finally, in Appendix 1, that just outlines the recommendation, as I previously mentioned, in relation to the working papers, and a follow-up of the prior year recommendation. So you'll see that 2 are closed and 1 is ongoing. For the ongoing recommendation, we'll pick that up as part of our planning in the forthcoming audit year. And that was all I was really needing to kind of highlight to you. Myself and Mark are also on the call, so if there are any questions or comments, we're happy to answer those. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Convener. Just on page 45, we mentioned those recommendations. I just wonder if you give a bit more detail on what it means by risk. There are insufficient working papers to support the accounts. Just as a non-accountant, I was just wondering if we get a bit more detail on what it means by working papers. Thank you.
Thank you. I can take that one initially. So when we get the annual accounts, these are supported by a package of what we call working papers. So everything that has been used to prepare the accounts, so all your kind of documents. So, you know, if you have a figure in there, there is some sort of paper behind that you've used to arrive at that figure. So your kind of supporting documentation, as we refer to as working papers. We had issued a working paper checklist, as we call it, which outlines our sort of minimum requirements for the year, and we would expect to receive that on day 1. We have had a bit of conversation with Francois and the team, just in terms of, you know, making sure going forward, both on our side and their side, we are reviewing this and making sure we are getting what's expected at the outset. But it's really everything that the board has to support the figures that they're putting in, and as audit, we would call that our working paper package. So I hope that clears up what we refer to by working papers.
Sorry, I just realised I've been making that mistake that everyone makes sometimes. Francois, anyway, can you please comment on what's been said about whether or not we were ready for the audit, and whether we needed to provide extra papers to make that possible?
Thank you, Convener. Happy to speak. Indeed, yes. So we do supply a package of working papers at the start of the audit. There was never any issue with the quality of those working papers, but the auditor obviously felt that there were some working papers which they had to ask for once the audit had started. For example, the working papers for IFRS 16, which is the new lease statement that came in. So the auditors were given the working papers within a very short time of asking, and we don't think it really helped the audit up a lot. So we are disappointed at the fee that was charged, but also we agreed that we will work with the auditors more closely in terms of ensuring that mutual expectations are very clear before the commencement of the audit in terms of the requirements for both sides.
Good, thank you. Councillor McCall.
Thank you, Convener. My question, well, one of my questions is actually in relation to that same point. I would agree with Francois that it's quite disappointing that we've been charged this if the papers were indeed provided in very short order. But my question for Fiona is, was there any substantive difference to the working papers pack or checklist that you had from previous years to this year? I.e., was there a requirement for additional papers that wouldn't normally be provided? And when was officers made aware of this? If there was a difference, when were they made aware of the difference in the timeline? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCall. In terms of the working paper package, as Francois had highlighted, so there were some new standards come in, as I mentioned, about the IFRS 16. So that was an additional item on that. You kind of find that our working paper checklist remains kind of similar year on year, so I wouldn't say there was too much of a change. Part of the slight problem is that the the working papers are provided at an earlier stage, and we don't then start the audit till later, just due to the way that we schedule the audits, and this has been the case for a number of years. But as you'll appreciate, we're in a kind of situation where we're trying to bring audit timescales forward, and our resourcing is getting quite tight. So if we can't get started on the days that we're planned to get started, that's then pulling resource from another audit where we are on quite a tight turnaround. So in terms of that, it wasn't a great hold up, but there was a hold up in terms of we couldn't get started on that day that we were planned to, which means I'm having to move resource between audits when we do then get the working papers in place.
So basically what you're saying is that you had a very slight delay, but you had insufficient working papers to get started while that gap was bridged between what was available and what wasn't available. Is that basically what you're saying?
I couldn't tell you the exact time frame, Councillor McCall. I could go back and find that if that's something you'd be keen to know, the specific timetables.
Yeah, I would be keen to know. I think a fine effectively of £1,000 is quite punitive, particularly if there was a substantive change to papers that perhaps we haven't produced before. So that's perhaps something you can work on with officers and bring back. I think, convener, if that would be helpful. I just don't think it's appropriate. I understand your tight timescales, and I do appreciate the effort that has been made to bring forward, the work that you do, and I don't underestimate at all the tightness of your schedule. But I do think that in order to avoid this in future, there needs to be a much better understanding, and perhaps the checklist could have been reviewed prior to you starting to make sure that if there was any gap, you'd have the opportunity.
Okay, I think it's... Sorry, Councillor McCall, I was going to say it would be helpful, I think, to identify the issues and for that to be shared with Darrell and with yourself and me, and we can certainly look at that at a future meeting if that's required. But I think, the issue's settled. I think Francois and Darrell and the others have got together, have worked out what needs done, and next year they will do it. I think that's going to be okay. As for the £1,000, yes, it would be nice to know why we got charged £1,000, and so let's find out, and one way or another we'll find out, we'll get that information. So if you can accept that reassurance, then are there any other questions?
I do have a second question.
Please go ahead.
Somebody's got a mic on.
Me.
Okay, thank you. My second question is around the other recommendation that is, where is it going? 31st of March, the governance documents. The agreed date, it says it's ongoing and completed in 2026, but the agreed date is the 31st of March 2025. So I'm not really quite sure what the agreed date is. If somebody could give me some clarity on that, please. Okay, who wants to do that?
I'm happy to give a bit of an update here, if that's okay for you, Councillor McCall.
Mm-hmm.
So the agreed date that you can see there as of the 30th of June, the 31st of March 2025, that is the exact agreed date from the last year's annual audit report. So we tend to not provide an update on that specific column.
Okay.
The column that provides the update going forward is that update column that says ongoing in 2026. The reason we've left it as 2026 is because we will be reviewing that as part of our standard risk assessment work that we do on the planning of the following year's audit. So rather than kind of pin down a specific date of the 31st of March, if we're not then getting round to doing the planning by that point for whatever reason, it just means that as we do the planning work, we can capture that and reflect that. And you'll see that coming through in next year's annual audit report as well. So hopefully by that point that can be a closed point and we've seen the updated governance documents. So I hope that kind of clears up the difference in the two dates being there.
It does, Fiona, thank you. So I have a question for the Chair. When will the revised documents come before the joint board?
Well, you'll have to ask somebody else because I haven't the faintest idea. Who would like to answer that question?
I'm happy to come in and offer some background. I don't think I can give you a firm and fixed date because the actions are against the clerk and the treasurer, and neither of them are here. But I'm certainly aware that reviewed documentation has been in circulation for officers to have a chance to feed back. So it's certainly something that's in motion. I can't quite, in the absence of either party, tell you when that they'd be likely to be brought forward, but I'd like to think it would be sooner rather than later.
I would agree. I would agree, particularly because we're going to be looking at risk appetite, and to some extent, what our governance and standing orders say might in fact contribute towards the review of the risk appetite. So I think it would be helpful to know when this will be coming forward. Thank you.
Well, we shall try to find out. So Darryl, it's an action that we'd like to take forward, find out exactly when that's planned. My experience is that standing orders are usually the thing that people like least working on and will put off on as many occasions as possible because it's such a horrible job to do, but they're really, really important, and they govern everything. So you're absolutely right, Councillor McCall, to ask for that. Okay, no one has mentioned so far the fact that we made a £13 million misstatement, which I'm surprised at because I think that was quite important. Would a little more explanation about what we did with the pension in language that doesn't involve quoting things that we don't know what they are? Fiona, can you enlighten us? What exactly happened here that we managed to make a £13 million mistake in our accounts?
Yes, certainly I can give an update. So in relation to the pension asset, so this is something that's come about over the past few years. You'll see it kind of coming through a lot more. So previously, the way that the pension funds have performed, you'll have seen there tends to be a pension liability, a net liability at year end, but we've seen it kind of move into a position of having an asset. And when the board gets the information from the actuary, this should have an asset ceiling, which essentially limits the amount of asset you are allowed to get and include in your accounts. So basically you have to have a kind of obligation to that future asset to be allowed to have in your accounts. So they almost limit the amount that you can have. In most situations, we do see that it completely wipes out the value of the asset that has been there because it's not a true asset in the accounts as such. So if it were to be included as an asset, it would almost skew the financial position for the year. Like I say, a lot of this has come around because of the kind of financial situation we're in, and we have seen a shift from, large liabilities in the pension to then moving it into an asset. So it's just so that it's given an accurate picture, and this is something that the actuary should be providing as part of it. So it's not necessarily in the preparation of the accounts, it's just something that the actuaries haven't been able to provide at the time that they were prepared. But this was picked up and addressed very, very quickly. So hopefully that gives you some clarity. I see Francois also raised his hand, so he might want to add something just to clarify the position as well.
Yes, go ahead, Francois, please.
Thank you very much. So just to explain to members that the pension value in the accounts is entirely notional and technical. It's a very volatile number. So some years it'll go up, it goes down, it's uncontrollable. It's entirely notional. So it does not affect the usable reserves of the valuation board in any way, shape or form. The issue we had this year was basically that the actuary supplied us, as Joanna explained, a report which had an incorrect interpretation of the asset ceiling. We received the report too late in the day to request another one for the unaudited accounts, unfortunately. So we immediately requested one, but we didn't get it in time for the unaudited accounts, but we did obviously receive it in time for the audited accounts. And we were upfront with the auditors about that from the very beginning. So obviously, we don't quite know why the actuaries did do that. That's the only body that we prepare accounts for where that happened. But obviously, I think we did request the report quite early on. But we will do our best next year with the actuaries to ensure that that this doesn't happen again.
Yes, thank you for that. Now, the last thing that maybe we should mention is the uncorrected misstatements. There's, I think, is it 7,000 or 6,000? Well, there are a couple of different misstatements. One's 7,000, one's 6,000, which we got wrong and which the auditor drew to our attention. And I think we decided not to correct them on the grounds that they were not of sufficient materiality. Is there anything that we should be worried about that, Fiona?
No, in terms of our work, you can see that it basically is a net impact of £1,000 because impact on the cost of services, and then on the balance sheet there's a 6 and a 7 debit and credit, which basically is only a £1,000. In our audit, we do find, you know, a lot of these issues coming up, but just because of the value of them, they were above our reporting threshold, but they're absolutely nowhere close to our materiality levels, which is 79,000. So you can see they're vastly below that. So they're not going to cause any sort of issue to the user of the accounts by remaining uncorrected. And we're content that that was all that we found through our audit work.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot to turn my off there. Francois, are you happy with that, or do you want to come back and comment?
No, I think the unadjusted errors are sufficiently small. There's no real impact on reserves or anything like that, Convener.
Good. Well, I think it's important to pick these things up because, you know, we've been told about them, been drawn to our attention. But again, looking at the whole exercise, it's been a really good external audit report, and you know, it shows that we are in good hands. Things are being done properly. So I congratulate the staff on what they've done, and thanks the auditor. I thank the auditor for her services too. Okay, Laura. We have to obviously agree the report. Are we happy to agree the report?
Thank you. That takes us to item 6B, response to external auditors' annual audit report on the 2024-2025 audit. Members are asked to agree the recommendations.
Now, Francois, is this another opportunity for you to tell us what you've already told us? But are you happy with what's been said?
Thank you very much, Convener. Yes, indeed. So the report also asked the board to obviously note the external audit findings, which has just been done, but also just to instruct us to get the account signed and thereafter published on the website. I mean, obviously, we do sort of reference the same sort of issues we've just spoken about in terms of the pension thing and audit adjustments. So there's probably no need to further elaborate on those ones, Convener.
Okay, are there any questions at this point? I don't think so, in which case can the report be agreed? And item 6C, annual accounts for the year. That's the next thing. Again, do we need to have a further introduction on those, Francois? We're happy with what you've said, but Councillor Duncan would like to ask a question.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I've just got, it's the last paragraph on page 67 of the papers, or page 10 of the accounts, regarding overseas votes and proxies. I think there's been some concerns raised about some people were not actually able to get their proxies due to, it says, misinformation from some members of the UK government. I'm assuming that means the last government. A couple of things spring to mind. I'd be interested in, you know, numbers as to how many people were impacted adversely by not being able to get their proxies sorted out. I mean, what material difference, if any, did it make to the election? Because obviously democracy is a keystone of, I think, what almost all of us believe in. So it has to operate transparently and effectively. So that's point one. Point two, I'd be interested, just for the records, who were these people giving out misinformation?
Councillor Duncan, I just want to check something with you. When you're using the word misinformation, do you mean incorrect messaging, which are the words that appear at the bottom of page 10?
That's correct, Convener.
Just in case anyone thought that those terms might mean different things. Okay, who was going to answer your question?
I can come in there. Yeah, I don't have any of the figures to hand today, but I can certainly look into that, Councillor Duncan, and see if I can provide you some background.
Okay, that would be handy because, as I say, I'm just interested in, you know, what numbers are we speaking about? What impact, if any, might it have made?
Okay. Any other questions? In which case, can the report, item 6C, annual accounts for the year, be agreed? Laura.
Thank you. That takes us to item 7, revenue monitoring 2025-26, and this is for noting.
Francois, over to you again. Anything you want to point out?
Thank you very much, Convener. If I can just highlight that this is the report for the half-year position at the end of September. So we are projecting a slight overspend for the year. However, the key point is that the reserve position is projected to be fine. Obviously, the board has a reserve policy that says the uncommitted general reserve needs to be sitting at 60,000, and we are projecting a year-end position of 72,000, which I think is the key point to highlight. I mean, obviously, there's various ups and downs within there, but the overall underspend projected is 18,000 with a closing reserve position projected of £72,000, and happy to take any questions if needed.
Any questions? No questions. The revenue monitoring report seems pretty good to me. Is the report noted?
Thank you. That takes us to item 8, programme of meetings for 2026. Members are asked to approve the programme.
Now, question here, it's something we've talked about at previous meetings, and I want to find out now whether this is serious or whether we can carry on the way we are. 9 o'clock on a Monday morning in Forfar presents difficulties for some people who have to travel a long way. It doesn't present difficulties for me, but then I'm lucky, I live right beside the bus stop, and it's not very far. But if you were living at the other end of Highland Perthshire, you might find this difficult. So what I'm asking is, are there any members who would like to see any kind of change in the timing and the location, either or, of the meetings? So if there are, please speak now.
I've got my hand up.
Sorry, Dave, on you go.
Yeah, just to say that I think 9 o'clock on a Monday morning is quite difficult. From my perspective, it's a 2-hour drive to be safe just because of roadworks and Swallow roundabouts and so on. I would welcome moving the meetings to a different date in the week, possibly a bit later. The other thing is it doesn't give an opportunity before the meeting to have a chat between the convener and vice conveners and so on, because it's the weekend and the papers tend to come out during the sort of latter part of the week before. So I would welcome it being moved to a later time in the week sometime.
Any others? Councillor Short.
Thank you, Convener. As you know, we're currently going through a monitoring system at the moment in Dundee with regards to our committees, and I wonder if that's perhaps a sensible option. Then you get the wider opinion of both the members of the board, but the wider public as well.
The wider public. I'm always in favour of consulting the public, but that kind of creates a lot of work in a new exercise. Probably better start with the board first, because ultimately it's the board who are going to have to attend these meetings. Anyone else who wants to speak on this? Or is it just myself and Councillor Cuthbert who are worried about it? Councillor McCall.
Thank you. Thank you. For as long as I can remember, this meeting has been held in tandem with Tayside Contracts Joint Committee. But I'm not quite sure if I understand correctly what Councillor Short was suggesting, that the timing and of this particular meeting should be for the consultation with people in Dundee only. Is that what you're saying, Lynn? Or no, did I misunderstand you completely?
Can I come back in again, convener?
Yes, tell us if we've misunderstood you. Well, if Councillor McCall's misunderstood you.
Yeah, at the moment, there is currently a consultation with regards to the meetings that take place in Dundee City Council. That's our standard council meetings. So there is currently at the moment an ongoing question: when is the most appropriate, and taking into account not just the committee meetings, but those who may wish to be involved in the committee meetings. Obviously, that would be things like coming along and listening to planning, etc. So I just thought that was something that's already happening.
Okay.
It seems like good practice, and perhaps it's something, if you do want to make changes, then it's worth it just for that wider audience as well.
So if I could come back in, if I may, convener.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I think, I don't know about Dundee or Angus, but I know in Perth and Kinross we've just published our calendar for 2026 in its entirety. So I'm not sure if it's practical to make changes during this particular calendar year. I do know that there were some clashes with certainly Tayside Contracts joint committee meetings, with some other committee meetings, and we had to do some changing around. So I do think it's worthwhile considering though. But surely the point of hybrid meetings is that if it's too far to travel, you can attend remotely. But I would like to see it move from a Monday. That's my personal view, for what it's worth.
That's interesting. That last thing you said changes the whole dynamic. That means there's two people who would like a change, but perhaps a different change. Any other members of the board want to give an opinion on this? Because, you know, it has to, whatever we do, it has to suit everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think it's relevant that it depends on who's hosting the meetings at the time. Obviously, Forfar, we're near Forfar, but then when we have to go to Perth, then we have the same problem as what you have. So I do think maybe a meeting that's later on in the day would give people more chance, especially if they were taking public transport, etc., you know, to get a train that's not so busy in the morning or whatever, or get to a station. I think later on in the day would probably be better for everybody if it was, say, 11 o'clock. We had the same problem with the transport meetings that used to take place up in Aberdeen as well, because the people from Inverness came down to Aberdeen. So I think their meetings were always at 11 o'clock and they were well attended, but I know obviously we've got enough meetings to fit in, but if that was a possibility, I think would probably work out better for everybody having to travel.
Yeah, if I can come back.
Sorry, Councillor McCall, on you go, yes.
Yeah, I think it's quite complex though, because Mondays are certainly for us is a pretty packed full day. So maybe doing a survey monkey around all the board members to get their thoughts and views might be helpful.
Happy to do that, but the board members are here, and so, you know, this is a good chance now to put a view. Councillor Anderson.
I'm happy with the 9 o'clock meeting in the morning. I'm online at my office, having travelled 7 miles to come here. I'm quite happy with the timing, and there's a lot of other meetings I've already arranged for later on this morning and this afternoon. So I'm happy with 9 o'clock, get it done within the hour. Okay at that. Thank you.
And Councillor Duncan.
Just a quick one, convener. Comes back to Councillor McCall's point about maybe a survey monkey, because obviously I don't normally attend this committee, so I would be loath to put forward any suggestions. On the other hand, like her, I do attend the Tayside Contracts one, so I'm aware that Monday's quite a tight ship, as it were.
Anyone else want to come in? Yes. Councillor Nicholl.
Thank you, convener. I'm quite very happy with the 9 o'clock starts, and I've been on both committees for some years, and you just get on with it, because if you try to get the three counties, for want of better words, to arrange their schedule around these two meetings, you're putting other meetings off, and if it's too much for you to get here for 9 o'clock, well, I'll go online or pick another meeting to go to. That's my opinion.
Okay, any further comments? Well, at the moment, if I'm trying to tot up the score, I think we've got one person who definitely wants to change. So two people who would like a different change. Well, a change, and then there's me, who I just want everyone to be happy and enjoy their meeting. So I think we should do a survey monkey, and we'll find a way of doing that and give people a chance to put their views after they've had a wee bit of time to think about it. How quickly we can make the change really depends on practicalities. Maybe we have to plan for a year ahead, maybe not, but I think we should at least think about it. One of the things that motivates me in this is that I much prefer meetings where people are physically present. I think they're a much better way of doing things. And hybrid meetings should be for people who just simply can't make it, maybe because they're ill, you know. But that's only my opinion. That's, you know, the hybrid meeting, people are welcome to attend in the hybrid format if they want to. Anyway, we've talked enough. We probably spent more time talking about this than we did about the audit and the annual accounts. So let's move on. And I think we're noting...
Sorry, apologies, Convener. We're still on the programme of meetings at present, yeah?
Yes, we're still in the programme of meetings.
Okay, thanks.
And what I think the decision is that we go ahead as planned and we do a survey monkey to try and find out what reform might suit everybody and bring back a report in the future. And who's going to actually do that work is something we haven't decided, but then no doubt the clerks will work out a way of doing it.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I'll take forward the views that have been expressed with the clerk out with this meeting. And what we'll do and understand, yeah, that the joint board at this moment in time are agreeing the programme of meetings as indicated on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, I presume that's acceptable to everyone. I've interpreted the meeting correctly. So can this be noted? And that brings us to the close of the meeting. And so I'd like to close the meeting by thanking you, everyone, for your attendance today, for your contributions. Meeting's over.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Convener.